They're still up there. They're still walking the deck. They look like the crew. They look like me boys. But they don't live. They're dead. Stab in the eyes. They're all dead. Shh. They still stand. They still walk. But they don't speak. They just stare. They stare, but they don't see. They hear, but they don't respond. What will they do with me? What will they do with old matey bosun? Shh, shh. I'll tell you the tale. Even if they find me here, I'll still have the tale told. Let these be me messages in a bottle. There be no one else. Captain Marchambault, Sully the cook, first mate Mr. Stanyard, even that bastard Blacketer. There's no one left. I snuck below decks, barred the trap behind me, hugged the hull, and crept through the cargo holds, quieter than any bilge rat stowing away in the bread stores. Made me way here, to the brig. Locked meself within. No one knows below deck better than old matey bosun. They've not left the top decks. So here I'll wait. They have to sleep eventually. Maybe I can make my way topside once they sleep. But do the dead even sleep? How does that old story go? Shh, shh. I hear them. They don't sleep. I can hear them shuffling about all night, and I can hear them still. I don't know what they're doing or where they're going, but they never stop moving. I've not left this cell in at least a week. Luckily, I can reach Sully's barrels of dried meat here. Oh, and luckily, let no man be wanting, and have grub for his hunger, nor grog for his thirst. No. It's a good thing you can't see the bucket I use when I'm done with both of these. But the stench is enough to keep them dead bastards away from this cell, I gather. I still puff on me pipe here. Even though I ran out of matches 3 days ago. Which is fine, as I ran out of anything to burn 5 days ago. But it gives me comfort, it does. They've not found me yet. We're all still topside. Let them rot in the sun, say I. Only me old matey bosun can be king below decks. I'd make a fine second mate, I would, but I can still be king below decks. It's all that bastard Blacketer's fault. It must be. Never trust no silver spoon lime juicer, says I. Can't even grow a beard. Never trust any salt that can't grow a proper set of whiskers after 70 days of sea, says I. Aye. It's all that bastard Blacketer's fault. I've no idea how, but I've not but time to parse it out. They're not even trying to get below decks. They're not even trying to find me. Me, old matey bosun. Have they forgotten me so soon? Syracuse set out from Cornwall with 36 souls aboard. Captain Marchambeau, first mate Mr. Stanyard, second mate Blacketer, Sully the cook, Wyatt at the helm, myself as bosun, old matey bosun. 8 below decks, 12 above, 10 upon the rigs. And there's not one left alive now. Was it a storm, you ask? There's always a storm in these stories, they say. No, not a storm. Brigands, then. Pirates, corsairs. We'd be so lucky. Was it a plague? If it were a plague, do you think I'd still be alive to relate the tale? Some fell beast of the deep, a kraken, to squeeze our hull to pieces, knock our masts aside like kindling, or some giant leviathan to swallow grown men by the score like so many kippers. Don't be daft, those are only in stories. Was it a curse, then? A curse. Aye. There's the rub. When I went topside that morning to find every member of this crew dead on their feet, the sails unlashed and flapping in the breeze, the Syracuse all but dead in the water weeks from any shore, I knew it could only be a curse. But how? I still need time. 'Twas near dawn on the 8th day when we were awoke by the all-hands. We scrambled topside to see what was spied. "Sails ho!" came the cry from the nest. "To the fore! Sails ho!" And every man stood in a line pressed against the rails, scanning the horizon, though there was not yet to be seen but the grey light of the dawn upon the waves. I shoved Blacketer aside to get a better spot. Even though there was nothing to be seen even closer, it felt good to remind Blacketer of his place. Captain Marchambeau stood at the foredeck, his glass to his eye. "It's the Threnody," said he, and all the men along the rail began to mutter, "The Threnody, she's our sister ship. She should be 40 days ahead of us on the return leg from Antigua." "The signal bell," said Captain Marchambeau. "Mr. Stanyard, let her ring out." And First Mate Stanyard was quick to spring to the mainmast and gave the signal bell 6 long, loud peals. We stood stock still, craning our ears to hear any bell in response. "Again," said the captain, and Mr. Archambault gave the bell 6 more rings, but again naught in return but the lapping of the waves. Again came the order, and again the ringing, and again naught in reply. "Captain," said the reedy voice of Blacketer beside me, "perhaps we're still too far off for that bell to be heard. Perhaps a cannon blast could travel the distance better." "Oh, perhaps," said I, scoffing and spitting over the rail. "Perhaps a waste of powder and shots," says I. "1 cannon, sir," said Blacketer. "Surely we can spare 1 ration of powder, without shot. Oh, the look he gave me, old matey bosun, for the sake of our sister ship." "Surely," said I, scoffing and spitting over the rail again. "Surely no less a waste, Captain, sir." And Captain Marchambeau stood with the glass still to his eye, before nodding. "A fine idea, Mr. Blacketer. 1 report, starboard a lee. Lively now, lads." And it was Blacketer who cried to the men, "You heard the skipper, boys. Set 1 cannon to call." Who does he think he is? Thinks he's first mate suddenly giving orders. Mr. Stanyard himself, does he, sitting at the captain's right hand? "Wash," says I. But the boys set to work, and it was mere moments before the still of the dawn was split in half from the crack of a cannon spewing fire to the skies. Damned things always set me ears to ringing, they does. But as the echo faded, and the Threnody made no reply, we looked again to Captain Marchambeau, who took the glass from his eye. "Trim the mains, lads," he cried. "We need to get closer." and it was Blackater who turned to the men. All hands, full speed ahead. Who does he think he is? But away went the boys, and the Circe took to the breeze, and all but flew across the waves as the grey light of the dawn began to lighten. And now we could spy the Threnody on the horizon, a tiny speck growing larger as we grew closer and closer. "The signal bell, Mr. Stanyard," cried the captain. "Let her ring again!" And there was something in his voice I did not like, so I went to his side. "What is it, sir?" said I. "What do you see?" Captain Marchambeau did not reply, as is his right as skipper of the Circe, but again cried out, "Ring it again, Mr. Stanyard! Let her ring out!" And I waited for the usual no reply for the Threnody before asking, "What do you see, sir?" It took a third, and then a fourth, and then a fifth repeating before he finally answered, "They're all topside." "Sir?" said I, not understanding. "All of the crew, Captain Marksbury, his mate, Mr. Swan, they're all just standing on the deck." "What?" says I. "You telling me every man aboard the Threnody has lost his hearing at once, going about his duties on deck without hearing a cannon split the morning in twain?" And the look the captain gave me chilled me to me very soul. He shoved the glass to me chest. "Not death," said he. "Not moving." And he extended an arm and a finger to point. "Spy for yourself." I put the glass to my eye to see what he meant. And upon closer inspection I could see that there was something wrong with their sails. They weren't lashed to catch any breeze, but no, they were hanging in tatters. Holes bigger than a man covering their whole surface. They'd never get a breeze with those again. And all upon her deck, every man aboard the Threnody stood in a line, pressed against the rail, as we had been only moments before, silent, still as the grave, all of their eyes fixed upon the Circe, upon us, as we approach. "God's bones," says I, and Captain Marchambeau ran to the prow of the Circe, his hands cupped to his beard. "Ahoy, Threnody!" he called. "Ahoy, Captain Marksbury! Mr. Swan, ahoy! Answer me true, boys! Anyone aboard? Ahoy!" No voice answered. But the ship grew closer, yet no man at the rail made any move, gave any sign that they could hear us or could respond. And I knew, lads, I could see it in their stone faces as they watched us get nearer, until we'd be too near to escape. I knew that ship was cursed. That ship was cursed, and soon we would join them. "The signal, Mr. Stanyard," cried the captain. "Let her ring out." But I heard my own voice cry out, "Not the bell, the cannons! Ready the cannons, boys! Blow that damned ship out of the water!" "Belay that!" roared the captain. "Mr. Stanyard, the cannons, says I! Ready the cannons!" "No swab to lay hands on them guns," roared the captain. "Mr. Stanyard, ring the signal bell! Mr. Blackater, relieve the boatswain of his duties!" Oh, you should have seen the look on that bastard Blackater's face. The pleasure he was going to take in clapping me in irons, and finally throwing me old matey boatswain in the brig. But I was fit to be damned, for I let that lily-white banker's son stop me from sending that cursed ship to splinters. Before he could lay hands upon me, I took the captain's glass, and I swung it with all the might the Lord God gave me, and struck the second mate across his pate, sending him staggering to the deck. I wouldn't need that glass no more. By now, we were close enough to see all the men standing like gargoyles watching us get nearer. "Fire the ship," cries I. "Come on, lads. Don't let them get near. Ready the guns." But before Captain Marchambeau could say otherwise, there was a flash aboard the deck of the Threnody, and all three of her masts erupted in flames. Those hanging sails now alive, flapping and spreading fire from stem to stern. None of us could see how the fire could have started so quickly, but it was mere seconds before the entire deck of the Threnody was just erupted in flames. The fire so high, you could almost no longer see the men pressed against the rail. Almost. The flames were so high and so bright that the only dawn we had that day was red sky and smoke. By the time the Syrkik pulled alongside her sister ship, there was nothing left of the Threnody to save. "Full stop!" cried Captain Marchambault. "Drop anchor." "Sir?" asked Mr. Stanyard. "Someone might yet live," replied the skipper. "We have to wait." And he returned to calling into the smoke, "Ahoy! Anyone alive? Ahoy!" And Mr. Stanyard turned to the men. "Look to the water, lads! Look for anyone alive!" And all the boys rushed again to the rail, their necks craned downward, their throats coughing in the thick smoke. Not I, though. Not old matey bosun. I knew no survivor would set cursed foot upon the Syrkik. If that blasted Blackater hadn't stopped me, I know I could have fired the guns and destroyed that ship before we even got this close. I just know it, lads. We were there for hours, it seems. I don't know how long exactly. Long enough for Blackater to regain his senses and join in the search. For it was his reedy voice that called out, Here, it's Mr. Swan. Drop a line, boys, bring him aboard." And I raced to a spot at the rail. "No," cries I, "he's cursed, he is. Don't let him on board." "Belay the boatswain," roared the captain. "You bring that man on this ship." And so Mr. Swan was laid upon the deck. His shirt was gone, but all over his chest and neck and shoulders and arms were a map of tattoos, hundreds of painted pictures of sailing ships and waves and islands and sea serpents from hundreds of different ports of call. But his eyes were open, and his painted chest rose and fell with breathing. Captain Marchambault knelt at his side. "Mr. Swan," said he, "Paddy, me lad, it's Captain Marchambault of the Syrkik. What's happened, man? Where's Captain Marksbury? The Threnody burns. Why didn't you tell us you were in need?" And Swan fixed his eyes upon the captain, but though he breathed, he spoke not a word. "Speak, Paddy," said the captain. "Tell us what happened aboard the Threnody." But again Swan said nothing, but shook with some sort of tremor, probably from being in the brine for so long, but I knew different. I knew he was already dead, damn him. His damned body just didn't know it yet. Cursed to live long enough to bring his death aboard the Syrkik for all of us. But he shook again, and Captain Marchambault clasped his hand tight, and Swan drew him in close. "What is it, lad? Speak, lad, please." But Swan only raised his other arm, and trembling, pointed a finger at all the tattoos covering his chest and neck and arms, tracing a line from one shoulder down his trunk across and up his chest, before shaking again, and the arm dropped limp to the deck. Captain Marchambault stayed by his side a moment longer, before taking to his feet, and saying loud enough for all to hear, "We'll have a sailor's farewell. I'll have the boatswain make the arrangements. Weigh anchor, boys. We sail for Antigua. There's nothing more to be done here this day." Now, I would protest this assignment, but no better than to question me captain's order, thank ye. And I'm just grateful he's forgotten that he wanted Blackater to clap me in irons only an hour before. So I knelt beside Swan to prepare him for his final swim. "Why?" I heard the reedy voice of Blackater beside me. "Why didn't he say anything?" I looked up at his lily-white face, streaked with blood from where I brained him with the spyglass, and couldn't help but grin at him. "Because he no longer has no tongue, sir," said I, turning Swan's gaping skull to face him. "He's chewed it off, he has." Blackater somehow grew even paler, put a hand to his mouth, and then ran to lose his supper over the rail. Perhaps that's why he doesn't wear a beard. But I ask ye, how is this poor, delicate soul deserve to lead the watch, to be second mate aboard the Syrkik? But now you see how this is all that bastard Blackader's fault. I tried to destroy the ship. I tried to keep them from bringing Swan aboard, but Blackader interfered. And now he's as dead as the rest of them. Good riddance, says I. We set off on the sloop, John, me, my grandfather, and me, and we called for the captain to shore and let us go home. Put him in the brig until he's sober. Put him in the brig until he's sober. Put him in the brig until he's sober. Early in the morning, way up she rises, way up she rises, way up she rises, early in the morning. Nothing. Bloody bastards. When I was a lad, a wee lad, me father took me on a trip to London town. I'd never seen so many people crowding the streets. And on a corner near the market there was a lady from the Apennines singing to the people. And she wore a massive dress covered in drapes and folds, and on each of the folds were painted pictures of sailing ships and islands and voyages upon the sea. And she sang in a language I couldn't understand, but while she sang she would sweep the dress and unfold the drapes and show different pictures underneath, and twist and turn and dance and twirl, showing new images all the while, and I could tell that the pictures she was showing us were telling the story of what she was singing, even though I couldn't understand the words she was saying. When she got to the end, I asked me father for a copper to give her, but he gave me instead a silver, and he said, "That's cant a story, a lad. Story singing. Why don't you stay here and listen to her tell her story a few more times, see if you can't parse it out. There's a good lad." And then he disappeared into the crowd. Cantastoria. I rolled the word over me head a few times. Cantastoria. I watched that lady sing her story over and over, and I do believe I was able to parse out the story, even though I knew they were just pictures upon her dress and not the words she was singing. Her story was still passed to me, even in my ignorance. The story of a second mate on a ship, who was torn in his love between a woman on dry land and his love of the sea. And though the woman loved him dearly, he would spurn her to return to his ship, even though the sea is vast and indifferent, and cares not for any man that sails on her surface, any more than it cares for any fish that swim in her depths. If only the sailor would stay, said she, they could be together in her home on the beach, and see his love's waves from her window every morning. But he would be safe on land with her and happy. They could be buried side by side when that day would finally come. But of course the sailor could never choose such a mundane life on land, and return to his ship, where his ship hit a storm. There's always a storm in these stories, they say, and all souls aboard were lost. And instead of being buried next to his love on land, he became just another countless soul to be lost forever to the depths, nameless, futureless. For the sea is always hungry. You could empty every graveyard, open every crypt, scatter the ash of every man, woman, and child from all of recorded time, and you would never fill her up. I had that last bit myself. Even as a lad, I had a bit of a morbid streak. But when I gave her me father's silver, she was so excited, chattering on in that Apennine tongue, but I wanted to know if that's what her story was actually about. But she did not ken the king's English. I could tell she was only excited for the silver, and not the questions from some whelp. Shortly me father returned, drunk off his heels, as usual, to gather me for our long journey home to Padstow. And I asked me father if he thought that's what the story was about, but he just cuffed me behind the ears and said I'd be so lucky to ever make second mate upon a sailing ship. You'd probably fail at being a boatswain, you would. Still, it's her story I've kept with me, true or no, even as I could hear the sea calling to me as it did the second mate in that story. I've no idea what happened to that lady from the Apennines, but I'd like to think her story lives on in my remembering. Though I guess now it dies here with me in this brig. I wonder why I thought of that story now after all this time. All in good time. I think I understand. When I was preparing Swan's body to be returned to the sea, I couldn't help it. I read his tattoos. I remembered him pointing to his tattoos as he died in Captain Marchambeau's arms, and I thought the tattoos must hold some sort of answer. And in reading the pictures on his body, a story began to take shape. Even though there was no singing lady from the Apennines, there was only the Threnody burning off our stern. I still saw a story. The story of a sailor going to port and visiting a soothsayer. And the soothsayer saw his future, a future of doom and ruin, for the sailor was cursed, and there was no escape. But the sailor mocked the curse and the soothsayer and returned to his ship, where his ship hit a storm. There's always a storm, they say, and all souls aboard were lost, except the sailor, who was left alone, adrift, clinging to a mast for dear life, a tiny speck on the endless tides of the hungry sea. And that image, the image of the sailor clinging to the mast, was a fresh tattoo on Swan's back, the flesh still raw from where he received it in port. Likely Cornwall before we caught up to them, but here it was, plain as the red dawn all around me as I knelt over his fresh corpse. Swan had finished the story of the curse, and then brought that story aboard his ship for all his crewmates. And that night I relayed the tale of Swan's tattoos to all me boys in the mess over grub. Me boys who laughed at old matey bosun, making up tales from a dead man's skin. Tales I myself brought aboard the Circe. For it was I that spotted Swan's tattooed body bobbing in the waves alongside us and called for him to be brought aboard. He had still splitting from where Blackadder had brained me with the spyglass, because I tried to stop him firing the cannons on our sister ship. No. It's all still that bastard Blackadder's fault. It must be. Why was I spared? Why did the curse take everyone aboard the Threnody and the Circe both, but it spared old matey bosun? Because dead men tell no tales. How can a curse survive if no one knows about it? How can a story be heard if there's no one alive left to tell it? A story needs to be told to be heard. What if a story were as hungry as the sea? And here be I, prattling on. Rant and roar like true British sailors. She wasn't happy for the silver. She was happy because someone had heard her story. Rant and roar all on the salt sea. The story. The Cantastoria. The story in pictures, even if the particulars aren't correct. Until we strike soundings with Channel of Old England. If things, details aren't correct, it matters not. The story is still told. From Ossa to Scilly is 35 leagues. The curse is still passed. Across language. Across time. Across tattoos. Pictures in tattoos, or pictures you see in your mind. Pictures inside me closet. A closet that looks nothing like the brig of a ship. Across a shoddy pirate accent. Even if I didn't live at the time of this story, I felt just as alone as a sailor locked in the belly of his own ship. I needed to share this story that has cursed me. For this story has cursed me. Up here. And now all of you have heard it too. I know how it ends. I know how it ends. Do you hear me, topside? Oh, watch on decks! Oh, watch ahoy! I know how it fucking ends!